The first time Elijah Carter walked through the iron gates of Hawthorne Preparatory Academy, he felt the weight of 100 years pressing down on him. The stone buildings were carved with names of donors whose families had been wealthy since before the Civil War. Banners in deep maroon and gold hung from the balconies. Students in tailored blazers moved in tight circles, laughing like they had never once questioned whether they belonged there. Elijah adjusted the strap on his backpack and stepped forward. Full academic scholarship, top entrance exam score in the state, national robotics champion. He had earned his place, but earning and belonging were not the same thing. Within minutes, a security officer stopped him near the courtyard. ID, the officer asked flatly. Elijah handed it over. The officer studied it longer than necessary. "Don't lose it," he said, handing it back. As Elijah turned the corner, he saw 3 other students walk past the same officer without being asked for anything. He told himself it didn't matter. In advanced literature, a blond boy leaned over and whispered, "What sport you here for?" "I'm not," Elijah replied. The boy blinked. "Oh, not an apology. Just confusion." By the end of the first week, Elijah understood the unspoken rules. Smile, stay quiet, be exceptional, never give them a reason. He kept his head down and outperformed everyone. 2 weeks later, the school exploded. During lunch, Senior Andrew Whitmore stormed into the hallway shouting that his grandfather's Antico gold watch had been stolen from his locker. It wasn't just any watch. It was a 19th century heirloom worth nearly $50,000. Teachers rushed in, students gathered. Within an hour, whispers filled every corridor. Locker room, after practice, someone new was there. Eyes began turning slowly toward Elijah. He felt it before anyone said anything, the weight of suspicion. By 4th period, a secretary appeared at his classroom door. "Elijah Carter, the headmaster needs to see you." The room fell silent. He stood calmly, ignoring the stares drilling into his back. Inside the headmaster's office sat Andrew, red-faced and furious, and Andrew's father, a major donor with his name etched into the library wall. The headmaster folded his hands. "Elijah, there's been an incident." "I heard," Elijah said. Andrew slammed his fist on the desk. "You were in the locker room. So were 20 other students." Andrew's father leaned forward. "Let's not pretend." Elijah met his gaze steadily. "Pretend what?" "That you don't fit the profile." The room went still. The headmaster cleared his throat. "We're just trying to resolve this quickly." "By accusing me?" Elijah asked. "No one is accusing," the headmaster replied carefully. "But we will need to check your bag." Elijah felt something inside him harden. "Do you have proof?" he asked. Andrew laughed bitterly. "You think this is random?" The headmaster stood. "Elisha, open your backpack." The door behind him opened. 2 security officers entered. Students had begun gathering outside the office. Sensing drama, Elijah slowly placed his backpack on the desk. He unzipped it himself. Textbooks, notebook, laptop. Then, a glint of gold. Andrew lunged forward and pulled out the watch. Gasps filled the doorway. Andrew's father exhaled sharply. Unbelievable. The headmaster's expression shifted from cautious to resolved. "Elijah Carter," he said coldly, "you are suspended effective immediately pending expulsion review." "I didn't put that there," Elijah said. Andrew scoffed. "It was in your bag. It wasn't there this morning." The headmaster's voice dropped. "Security will escort you out." As Elijah walked through the hallway, students stepped aside as if he carried something contagious. Phones were already recording. Someone whispered, "Knew it." Someone else said, "Scholarship kids." Elijah didn't look at anyone. Outside the gates, his mother was already waiting. She had received the call. She stepped out of her car before he even reached it. "Tell me," she said softly. "They planted it," Elijah replied. She didn't hesitate. They walked back inside together. The headmaster looked irritated when she entered. "With all due respect," she began calmly, "what evidence do you have besides something found in his bag?" "It was recovered from his possession," Andrew's father said sharply. "Possession doesn't mean theft," she replied. Andrew stood. "Why would I plant it?" She looked at him carefully. "That's a good question." The headmaster raised a hand. "Mrs. Carter, the situation is clear." "No," she said firmly. "It's convenient." The board was called. By evening, an emergency parent committee meeting convened. Rumors spread online. Local community pages buzzed with speculation. Scholarship student steals priceless heirloom. But someone else was watching. In the maintenance hallway behind the locker rooms, a quiet janitor named Mr. Alvarez replayed something in his mind. He had seen Andrew earlier that day, slipping into the locker room alone. Later, he saw Andrew again walking past Elijah's unattended bag near the gym. It hadn't seemed important at the time. Now it did. Mr. Alvarez contacted it. Security footage was pulled, in grainy black and white. Andrew appeared on screen. He looked around, unzipped Elijah's bag, slid something inside, zipped it back up. The room where the board meeting was taking place fell into stunned silence as the footage played on a large screen. Andrew's father went pale. "That's manipulated," he snapped. "It's time-stamped," the IT director replied. Andrew's composure shattered. "You don't understand," he shouted. "He doesn't belong here," the words echoed. The truth had finally surfaced. Not about the watch, about everything. Elijah and his mother were called back in. The headmaster stood rigidly. "It appears," he said stiffly, "that there was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," Mrs. Carter repeated. Andrew sat slumped, exposed. "You searched my son," she continued. "You humiliated him in front of the entire school." The headmaster swallowed. "We will reverse the suspension." Elijah spoke for the first time. "That's not enough." The room turned toward him. "You assumed," he said evenly. "You didn't investigate. You didn't question anyone else. You saw me and decided." Andrew's father remained silent now. "What do you want?" the headmaster asked. Elijah looked directly at the board members. "Of public assembly," he said. "You clear my name in front of everyone who watched you destroy it." He paused. "And a scholarship fund? For students like me?" The board exchanged uneasy glances. "And mandatory bias training," Elijah added. "For faculty? And parents?" Andrew let out a bitter laugh. "You think this changes anything?" Elijah met his eyes. "It already has." 2 days later, the entire student body filled the auditorium. Phones were banned. This was not for entertainment. The headmaster stood at the podium. "We owe Elijah Carter an apology," he said. The screen behind him displayed the footage. Gasps rippled again, but this time directed at Andrew. Andrew's father stared forward, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The headmaster continued. "We acted on assumption rather than evidence." Elijah walked onto the stage. He looked out at hundreds of faces, some ashamed, some stunned, some still uncertain. "You didn't see me as a student," he said quietly. "You saw me as a suspect." Silence. "You didn't need proof. You needed comfort." A few students lowered their heads. "I earned my seat here, the same way anyone else did." He stepped back. The applause started slowly, then grew. But Elijah did not smile, because applause could not erase the hallway whispers. That afternoon, Andrew withdrew from school. His father released a statement about private family matters. The scholarship fund was established within a month. Applications doubled the following year. Faculty attended mandatory training sessions that were no longer optional. But the most shocking part wasn't the exposure, it was the shift. Students who once avoided Elijah now approached him differently. Not with pity, with respect. One afternoon in Robotnik's club, a freshman approached hesitantly. "I almost didn't apply here," she admitted. "After what happened," Elijah adjusted the circuit board and looked at her. "But you did," she nodded. He handed her a tool. "Good." The gates of Hawthorne still stood tall. The stone walls hadn't changed, but something inside them had cracked. The next time security asked for an ID, it was random, not selective. The next time a rumor spread, it was questioned, not accepted. Elijah still walked those hallways, still carried his backpack. But now, when eyes followed him, they carried something different. Not suspicion, awareness. And sometimes that was the beginning of justice. The applause from the assembly echoed for days, not because it was loud, but because it was uncomfortable. Hawthorne Preparatory had built its identity on prestige, discipline, and legacy. Now it was being discussed for something else entirely. Alumni groups buzzed with tension. Some defended the school, others demanded deeper reforms. The The board released a formal statement acknowledging systemic blind spots. Elijah read it twice. Blind spots. He wondered how something so deliberate could be described as accidental darkness. The following Monday, he returned to class. No escort, no whispering teachers at doors, but the energy had shifted. When he entered advanced literature, the same blond boy who once asked about sports avoided eye contact. The seat beside Elijah remained empty for several minutes, till a girl from the debate team quietly sat down. "Your speech," she said softly, "was brave." Elijah nodded once. It was necessary. Word spread that Andrew Whitmore had not simply withdrawn. His father's financial contributions were under review. The board had discovered additional disciplinary reports quietly varied over the years, complaints about harassment, intimidation, and gambling debts that had been overlooked because of legacy status. The scandal widened. Local news picked up the story after a student anonymously leaked details online. Headlines read, "Elite School Faces Bias Reckoning After False Accusation." Cameras gathered outside the iron gates. Hawthorne, once insulated by wealth, was now exposed to scrutiny. Inside the faculty lounge, tensions simmered. Some teachers privately admitted they had felt uneasy when Elijah was first accused but had stayed silent. Others defended their inaction as procedural compliance. Dr. Hargrove, the history teacher, requested to speak with Elijah after class one afternoon. "I should have said something sooner," she confessed. Elijah studied her expression carefully. "Why didn't you?" he asked. "I didn't want to jeopardize my position," she admitted. He held her gaze. "And I didn't want to jeopardize my education," he replied. The truth sat heavily between them. He was learning, demanded discomfort from everyone, not just the targeted. At home, his mother followed developments closely. "You okay?" she asked one evening as he finished calculus homework at the kitchen table. "I'm tired," he admitted. "Of what?" "Being strong." She sat across from him. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said gently. He looked up. "If I'm not, they win." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Strength isn't about never bending," she said. "It's about knowing when you've already proven enough." But Elijah knew something deeper. He hadn't proven enough. Not yet. The scholarship fund launched publicly 3 weeks later. The Carter Equity Initiative. Applications poured in from students across the state, brilliant minds who had once dismissed elite schools as closed doors. During the launch ceremony, reporters asked Elijah what motivated him. "Opportunity shouldn't depend on perception," he said calmly. The clip aired nationwide. Messages flooded his social media: support, gratitude, admiration. But among them were threats, anonymous accounts accusing him of playing the victim, telling him he got lucky, telling him to know his place. Elijah didn't respond. Instead, he printed a few of the messages and placed them in a folder labeled "Reminder," not of hate, of why he couldn't stop. Back at school, a new policy required investigations to involve independent review panels. Student lockers could no longer be searched without documented cause and multi-person authorization. Security procedures were revised, but perhaps the most significant change came quietly. During a basketball game one Friday night, a freshman dropped his phone in the hallway. When it went missing, he hesitated before reporting it. "I don't want to accuse anyone," he said. The teacher replied immediately, "We don't accuse. We investigate." Elisha overheard the exchange. It was subtle, but it was different. Mid-semester, the college admissions process began. Guidance counselors urged Elijah to aim high: Harvard, MIT, Stanford. But one counselor, Mr. Peters, hesitated during their meeting. "Elite schools can be complicated environments," he said cautiously. Elijah recognized the tone. "You think I can't handle it?" he asked. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." Mr. Peters cleared his throat. "I just don't want you to go somewhere that won't appreciate you." Elijah leaned back in his chair. "I don't need appreciation," he said. "I need access." The counselor had no response. Weeks later, acceptance letters began arriving. The first was from MIT, then Princeton, then Harvard, each envelope thicker than the last. The night the Harvard letter arrived, Elijah opened it slowly at the kitchen table. He read the first line twice. "Congratulations, full scholarship." His mother covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. "You did it," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "We did." News of his acceptance spread quickly at Hawthorne. Suddenly, the same hallways that once felt hostile felt almost celebratory. Students who had doubted him now bragged about knowing him. Teachers referenced his name in class discussions. The transformation was almost dizzying. One afternoon, as Elijah walked past the trophy case, he noticed his reflection beside the engraved donor names. For the first time, he didn't feel overshadowed by them. He felt parallel, equal. Near graduation, the board invited him to give the commencement speech. Some called it symbolic, others called it overdue. He accepted. On graduation day, families filled the lawn beneath a bright spring sky. The iron gates stood open. Elijah stepped to the podium in his maroon robe. He scanned the crowd, parents, faculty, students, and cameras. He began softly. "A year ago, I stood in an office accused of something I didn't do. The audience grew still. I was judged before I was heard." He paused. But that moment did more than expose bias. It exposed possibility. He described the scholarship fund, the policy reforms, the conversations that followed. "Justice isn't loud," he said. "It's consistent." He looked directly at the faculty section. "It's choosing fairness even when it's inconvenient." A breeze rustled the banners behind him. "I don't stand here as someone who overcame doubt," he continued. "I stand here as someone who refused to accept it." Applause rose, stronger this time. Not polite, earned. After the ceremony, as students tossed their caps into the air, Elijah felt something unexpected. Not triumph, clarity. Get it! He had entered Hawthorne as a scholarship statistic. He was leaving as a catalyst. Later that evening, he returned alone to the iron gates. The campus was quiet now, empty. He placed his hand on the cold metal. For a moment he remembered the first day, the security officer, the whispers, the accusation. Then he remembered the assembly, the footage, the apology. He exhaled slowly. The gates had not changed, but he had, and so had the institution behind them. His phone buzzed, a message from the freshman girl in robotics. "Thank you. Because of you, I applied to Princeton." He smiled faintly, because that was the real victory. Not the public apology, not the headlines, not even the acceptance letters. It was the ripple, the shift in what students believed was possible. As he walked away from Hawthorne for the final time, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. The place that once saw him as a suspect now carried his name in its scholarship fund. And the next time someone new walked through those iron gates on a full academic scholarship, they wouldn't walk alone. They would walk through doors that had already been forced open. And this time, when eyes followed them down the hallway, the question would no longer be, do they belong here? It would be, what will they change next?